Hey everyone. Today I decided to make a video on familiar spirits, what they are, how to acquire them, and what to expect. Okay, you hear a lot about familiars in different occult circles and witchcraft forums and things like that, and in books. Most people, when they think of familiars, they think of a cat or a snake or a toad or, physical animals. That's all fine and well. Physical animals, they are really good in protecting you spiritually, helping you direct your energy, especially cats. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about spirit familiars. Spirit familiars are like allies, and they hang around you and they assist you in your occult work. They can gather information for you, they can protect you, they can alarm you when something bad's going on or somebody's trying to mess with you, and so on. Pretty much anything that you could think of, a familiar can accomplish. So, how does one acquire a familiar? Well, the first time that I ever acquired a familiar was by accident. It was a little bit after I got into the occult, and I was working with the Simon Necronomicon. And there is a chant in there called Ia Adu Ne chant. It's called a Great Mystical Conjuration. I was like, okay, there's not much information on this, but let me try it out and see what happens, So one day I set up a scrying mirror and I chanted the Ia Adu Ne chant about 3 to 5 times probably. And the energy of the room kind of shifted, and I started seeing shadow type beings inside the scrying mirror. And then that shadow coalesced into an entity. I'm not going to say what it looks like or what its name was, as it's a personal thing. But that entity was attracted to my calling, and it came through the gate. And it gave me its name. I heard it in my mind really, really clearly. And I wrote down what it looked like. I was like, all right, this is cool. And I asked it if it wanted to help me on my journey. And it said, yeah. It's like, awesome. So I created a sigil for it, drew its description and its attributes, and I learned more and more about it as time went on. And that was my first familiar. After that, I had the experience with King Paimon, where I drew his sigil out, and then I went to the fields and acquired what I'd like to call lycanthropic legions of shadow wolves. And it can be kind of a chaotic happening. Like when it's supposed to happen, they'll come to you, and they'll link up with you, and they'll hang around you, and you can leave offerings, you can make sigils for them, you can add them to grimoires, that if you do write grimoires, or you can just keep it secret. You can just work with them. They can telepathically talk to you, and it can become a really good, fulfilling relationship back and forth between you and the familiar. Many familiars will take on animal form, depending on their nature. Like I mentioned earlier, the wolves. Some of them take on the appearance of a person or a cloaked hooded being. But other methods that you could use to acquire a familiar spirit is cast a circle in any tradition that you like and make it known to the universe that you seek a familiar. And at some point, you'll sense a spirit at the periphery of your circle offering to join with you and help you. And you can link that entity with an object of your choosing. And they can use that object as a vessel to rest in when they're not actively helping you on your journey. That requires a little bit of clairvoyance or psychic awareness of the astral realms, which I'll make a video at some point about how to develop your astral senses. But back to it, it can be an intuitive thing. And you can just kind of go by feel, Some people will say that some people get hung up on the idea of like, is this real or is it just all in my head? And the answer to that is if it works, it doesn't really much matter. Sometimes these things come to you and they already exist. They've existed for hundreds or thousands of years. Other times you get in your mind an idea that really resonates with you and you create it all on your own without realizing it. And after a time, it takes on its own shape and form, and you're feeding it through your belief. That's one good thing about familiar spirits is you don't really need to give regular offerings to them because they're linked to you. They use some of your energy, and also belief sustains them. Belief is their drink and food. So every month or so, or every week, you could focus on your familiars and imagine energy flowing into them from the elements or the celestial energies or infernal if you're more left-hand path. Let's see. Another way that you could acquire a familiar spirit is, as I said, create one deliberately. You could do that. Those are called servitors. You think of something that you want a spirit to accomplish. You create a sigil for it. You imagine a huge void of energy and you shape the entity into whatever shape that you want in your mind. You link that with the sigil and then you start communicating with it. And over time, it'll become more and more aware and more powerful. Some people say that servitors, you don't want to keep them alive for very long because they'll become unruly the longer they exist. I've experimented with both ways, creating them and letting them exist, and also absorbing them back into the Akasha afterwards. And I haven't really seen too many negative effects from keeping them around. Sometimes they will seek their own freedom if you are the one who created them, and you can offer that to them, and you can make sure that they join a certain hierarchy of spirits. So that they can learn from the others and grow in power. But that's kind of a topic for another video, servitors. But back to the familiars. First person I met that had their own familiar was my friend that I mentioned on, for those who have passed on, Lee Estep. He had it was like a lizard familiar spirit. It was really cool. You could call on it to do things for him and warn him of dangers and things like that. And I'll never forget the time that we hung out near this church that was purported to have bound a really demonic spirit at one point. And we were discussing that and some different local legends and stuff. And he told me about his familiar spirit, and he let me see it. And it was really cool. Because usually when you have a familiar spirit, only you can see it, and other people can't unless you let them. There are some nefarious occultists out there who will try to steal other magicians' familiars. I don't know if it happens so much nowadays, but back then it happened quite frequently. I believe that's what happened to this one Eric Von Roth guy who wrote a book on succubus. He put out in public the knowledge of the true name of his succubus. And I think somebody probably stole her from him. If he watches this video and she's still around, cool. I hope all things are well, because his methods really helped me back in the day when I was learning about succubi. But if you're not going to work with them, familiar spirits, in the capacity that you want them to grow to God forms and put them in grimoires, then you should keep the information secret for sure. Keep their sigil to yourself. Only tell people that you trust completely. Even then, I would err on the side of caution. Another way of acquiring familiar spirits is to ask a higher being for one, especially those beings who are said to grant familiar spirits. You're like, all right, this is what I'm working on. Could you grant me a few familiar spirits or a legion that would assist me for this time period? And if you are on good terms with that being, they should acquiesce to that request and grant you the familiars. And you'll feel like that you're not alone, that you're being watched and stuff like that. And the more you communicate with them, the stronger the relationship will be back and forth. And you'll learn more about them. You can keep the information in your grimoire or your occult journal, which I highly recommend for all occult practices. During nights of power, like the nights of the full moon, you can cast a circle and you can call out to your familiars, be like, hey, thank you for your assistance. Continue to work with me on this or that or whatever. And cool experiments that you can do with your familiars is ask them to go and gather information for you. Be like, all right, it could be something as simple and trivial as, is it going to rain tomorrow? Or, what are the stocks going to be like in the coming months? Are there any spirits in the general area that I'm living? Are there any things that I need to know about, like any hidden secret things that I need to know about concerning this area, any bad history here, stuff like that. And they can relate that hidden information to you. I guess kind of like familiar spirits would be if you called upon the Goetic spirit Halphus, and you build those astral towers, and he puts sentries there to guard and protect your dwelling place. You can call upon them in his name, ask them to report, maybe weekly, what's going on in your general locale, like if there's any spirits who are attracted to your work that shouldn't be there, stuff like that. Drinking the water made me just think that you can get elemental familiars. If you know how to explore the elemental realms, you can go to those places and get the names of different spirits there, and you can communicate with them, ask them to be your allies, and you can leave offerings of their element for them to feed on and empower them. And that can be a fruitful endeavor. Some people like to command the elementals by the names of the archangels or the rulers of the elemental spheres mentioned by, I think it's Paracelsus. So that would be Raphael for air, Gabriel for water, Michael for fire, and Uriel for earth. Gob for gnomes, Nixa for undines or water elementals, Parada for sylphs, and what did I miss? Jinn for fire, and surprised I remembered all those right off the bat. But yeah, you can call upon them and those names and acquire familiars that way. So I believe there are some occult books out there strictly on familiar spirits. I can't think of any right off the bat because I've never read any of them. I've just learned through trial and error, experimentations and stuff. But if you want to try getting familiar spirits, it's a good way to start building up sort of like spiritual allies and things that can really assist you on your occult journey. So yeah, I hope this video has helped you come up with some ideas on how to start working with familiar spirits, how you can acquire some, and how you can work with them. If you don't have clairvoyant abilities, you can divine intentions through tarot cards, pendulum. Go by just general feeling, like, okay, this is happening because of this. It might be hit or miss until you develop your abilities, but it's definitely worth a shot. That's when summoning the elementals in the names of the higher beings could really come into play, because most likely they're not going to allow a being that would harm you to come to you. So that would be the benefits of calling them in those names. For beings like King of Fire, Jin, Nixa, you could say, hey, would you be able to bring to me benevolent spirits that could be my familiars so I can master the art of working with this element in this elemental realm so I can understand more of it. And when it's time for them to depart from me, I'm cool with it, because then I'll learn everything that I've already needed. And that should be a fruitful endeavor. But yeah, just wanted to make a short video on familiar spirits. I will make a video at some point on developing clairvoyant abilities, because I've seen that in the comments a few times. But anyways, hail Lilith always and eternally, and hope you are well.